A very good morning once again. Thank you so much for joining us here on NBS Television. This is the Breakfast Meeting. Once again, my name is Isabella Tugumi. We are looking at solving the land question in Uganda. Now, land in this country is a very essential pillar for human existence and as well as development. In this country, land is one of the most invaluable assets that one can have. However, there seem to be very many questions coming and emanating from the question of land in Uganda, the land grabbing and then the governance issue in the country. Now, to help us understand more on that particular subject is Dr. Sebastiano Rwengabo, who is a researcher from ACODE Uganda. It's a pleasure to have you with us, sir, here on NBS.
Thank you.
So kindly tell us why has the issue of land governance persisted as a problem in this country?
First of all, we have to understand that Uganda is an agrarian economy. An agrarian economy means it still depends on agriculture and agricultural practices for socio-economic and even political survival of the society. In an agrarian economy, it means much of what goes on depends on access to land, ownership of land, control of land, and use of land. Now, because of that, the land becomes the center of livelihood and existence. Now that means that if land is not managed well, there will be problems. And now I'm talking about why has this problem persisted, meaning that it has been there.
It has been there, yes.
The Banyoro resisted colonial rule saying we want to protect our land. The colonialists defeated them and took their land and gave it over to someone and marketized land. The Baganda controlled their land under customary tenure where the king and the chiefs would get land, distribute it and give it to people and people use it for production. But the British came and said now land has become marketized. It's like a dress in the market you can buy and sell, though it doesn't expire like a shirt. Now those problems over time increased and have persisted. So, I will not go into their causes. Let me look at why they have persisted. I have few ideas. One, for the last 30 years, we have been having different priorities, competing priorities. We have been looking at economic recovery. We have been looking at peace and security. We have been, now lately in the last 1 decade, we are looking at infrastructure development. Land seems to have been relegated to the dustbin of policy and bureaucratic interest. The other issue is that our rate of urbanization is not planned. We have unplanned, but also slow urbanization and industrialization, which would absorb much of the population and distance them from the land so that we don't begin competing over land all the time. The other issue is that when you look at the brief problem I talked about of history and colonial experiences, some of those injustices have not been addressed. Yeah. The failure to address historical injustices of absentee landlords, of commercialization of land shifting from authority structure to another, has created new forms of problems. For instance, if land was given to a chief and it's a square mile of land and on that land live people, the man has a title, he owns the land. But there live people, they depend on the land. And those questions have never been addressed. Yeah. The final problem, I think, is lack of political will. We have not had the will politically to fight the land problems as we had, for instance, to fight HIV/AIDS. We have not had the political will to fight, to solve land problems as we now have it to build infrastructure. Yeah. And we have not had political will to address land problems as we have, for instance, tried to address civil conflicts and insecurity. And because of this, sufficient political and bureaucratic energy is not dedicated to solving land problems, and that's why they are persisting.
So now we understand that governance is a shared responsibility between government, civil society organizations, the media, the academia, the private sector, and various development partners. But now as ACODE, as the think tanks, what exactly have you done to make sure or ensure that we improve land governance in the country?
Thank you very much. To respond to that question, I should be saying that in organized societies or polities, polities meaning societies that have political systems, governance for the last part, for the major part, has been in the hands of the state. Other governance actors supplement functions in governance. Now, where the state does not have direct interest in governing a certain spectrum of life, other governance practitioners may do just little. But to answer your question, as think tanks, as the researchers, we are doing something. First of all, we research and document the problems of land governance in this country. We have done so very well. I have seen studies by Center for Basic Research. I have seen studies by Economic Policy and Research Center. I think MISA is doing similar studies. ACODE has a whole research program on land governance. But we also advocacy. For instance, ACODE engages government on where the problem is, how it can be solved, who can solve it, and also contribute to the solving of the problem. Last week I was in Bulisa mediating between pastoralists and cultivators. These two livelihood groups over lands. Some people are saying you are grazing on our crops. Others saying you are planting your crops on our grazing land. And these groups have been fighting for many years. So I was there to mediate their conflicts and finding solutions to their conflicts, and I was working with the local government structures there to see how we can address some of the problems. So advocacy is one way, but the other one is to inform the communities, especially those marginal communities whose land rights are violated, to inform them about their land rights, to give them information so that they can follow existing mechanisms to solve their problems.
So you had a State of the Address, dialogue rather, and this took place last week on Friday, I think 2nd June. Yes. So tell us, what can we expect from the State of the Nation dialogue?
Our State of the Nation dialogue is a monthly dialogue. We hold it on the issue at any given time. Previously, we have held dialogues on the conflict in Sudan. We have held dialogues on LOC elections. We have held dialogues on the crisis in Kampala City, post-election peace building. So we normally hold it on a burning issue. We held this dialogue because there was a debate on land. There are 3 issues on land. One, there is a recently constituted commission of inquiry on land, and we think people need to know so that they can make submissions to the commission. There was media information about the intent to give away government ranches to private individuals, or privatization of government land where ranches were. And then these conflicts, impending evictions in the Albertine Graben as we undertake oil-related developments like pipeline, central processing facilities, and other infrastructure. So we brought it so that the debate on land and managing these land problems can continue and people benefit. What could come out of that is that we have enhanced government appreciation of the nature and extent of the land governance problems we are facing. Yes. The minister came and received a lot of submissions from the participants. And we saw many of the participants, government officials, especially from local government, from the president's office like RDCs, underlining the challenge of land governance they are going through. So government is increasingly appreciating both internally and in relation to other stakeholders that this problem needs to be solved. The other one is to ignite discussion in the public. We had Twitter handles, we have Facebook channels, we had live broadcast. That means the public now is also going to be involved in the debate. Those who were watching the debate, who saw the minister's responses, who saw the questions that were being asked to the minister, they are able now to know what government interventions are coming and what they can do as communities to solve their problems. The final possible one is that when the public gets informed, they should then be able to make more demands. Yeah. An active citizenry is a ingredient of democratic governance, and I think when the people get informed or excited and they know where to go to solve their problems, they can make more and more demands, and in the process, once people demand and government responds, the problem can be solved.
So let's look at the current evictions that have been taking place. I understand that they peasants that have been evicted off their land for one reason or the other. It could be developmental purposes or for whatever reason there is. From your perspective, what do you think are the implications of these evictions and the related developments on people's livelihood? Because if I'm going to be evicted off my land for development, then it surely has an implication on me and my development and my livelihood.
That's a very important issue in Uganda today because of developments in large-scale agricultural interests, such as in Bugara Island, in Karangara, mining and mineral processing interests, such as in Sokuru sub-county in Toro, or the oil and gas sector. Evictions take place because government wants land, big companies want land, and also individuals, powerful individuals want land. It is also taking place because of the historical injustices. People owned land, but were not using the land. And on that land lived people who laid claim on access and control and utilization of this land. Now, these people don't own the land. They have user rights. They have protections within the law, the constitution, and what have you, but also the landowner has some protections, and now the landowner can invoke the law and cause eviction of these people. Either compensate them and evict them, or simply come and evict them violently and fraudulently, or illegally, as some people are calling it, as it is happening in some parts. So these evictions are disrupting people's livelihoods. If I am a pastoralist, I have 100 cattle, I have been grazing in a certain geographical space, and you evict me, where are you going to take me? With my 100 cattle. If I have been living on the fringes of Queen Elizabeth National Park and I graze my cows alongside the buffaloes, and you evict me from that area, and you bring me to Chamhunga or you take me to Kamuri, my livelihood is interrupted. My social networks and cultural spaces and existential familiarities are interrupted. But most importantly, in theory, according to international standards and emerging practices in Uganda, if I am evicted for public interest, for instance, for the construction of a road or for the construction of a central processing facility, my livelihood should be restored or improved. Unfortunately, we have instances, especially in the Albertine of evictees whose livelihoods have not been restored, whose livelihoods have been made worse. When I'm evicted, I'm supposed to be compensated. Some of those people have had their compensations delayed. Others have received contentious rates, their disagreements over rates. We think these evictions should be handled carefully to reduce social tensions related to these evictions.
Now, you mentioned that there might be various reasons that one might be evicted from their land. How can this be avoided? And what other reasons are there besides development and the like?
There can be evictions as a result of emergencies. If a landslide hits Bududa, we have to evict people, take them somewhere, or resettle them. There can be evictions as a result of a war. A war can come and all of a sudden, people have to be moved from one area to another, and there can also be evictions as a result of emergencies, other emergencies like epidemics. But most importantly, to avoid evictions on development lands, we have to find a way of maximally utilizing land. Do you need to evict people to expand Kampala-Entebbe Road? In that same space, can't you expand the road and create a dual carriage 6-lane road? If it is possible, how can we maximize that? Can you construct a flyover above this road so that it serves the purpose that you would need to evict people? Because I think the cost of evicting people 100 meters both sides would be equivalent, evicting them and compensating them and doing what would be equivalent to the cost of constructing a flyover all the way up to Entebbe. So you can maximize your land by making sure that as much as possible is done on a small piece of land, if you need land for development. The other one is to make sure that before evictions are undertaken, the community is engaged, it is sensitized, it's educated, and shown the benefits they are going to have from the development on their land, in order that they buy into the relocation, then they should be resettled and compensated.
Yeah.
If that is not done, then you will have development for whom? For the big capitalist, for a powerful individual, for the state, in which the citizens are not happy. And development should be for the citizens, nothing else, at least in theory, yes.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sebastian. Now, you and I both know that there was a commission of inquiry that was set up to handle the intricate land issues in the country, and this is the Catherine Bamgemeride-led commission. Now, from your perspective, what do you expect from this commission?
I was fortunate to have, to have attended a presentation in which the Civil Society Coalition on Oil and Gas was making a presentation to the Commission on the several land issues that we are facing in this country.
Yeah.
Commissions of inquiry are always set up with an objective of finding workable solutions to an existing policy problem. And I think in our work, in our advocacy previously, especially ACODE, we have been saying land governance is problematic. Maybe there should be a commission of inquiry. Maybe there should be a process, an investigative process, through which government can fully understand the governance challenges and find solutions to them. I hope the commission will document the problems of land governance at the governmental level and speak directly to government about them. Say, these are the issues we have found. It will make recommendations to government on this is what needs to be done, this is what needs to be done, this is what needs to be done, and in the process, it will underline the magnitude of the problem. You may always read in the media or hear Rwengabo speak that there are problems of land governance, but you may not know how deep and serious they are. Yes. But the Commission of Inquiry, if submits a report and Cabinet takes the time to study the report, I believe they will be able to know how deep and deep-seated the problem is and how much political and bureaucratic energy is needed to solve the problem. I hope government will act on the, on the report of the Commission, because ordinarily that's why the Commission has been set up, to give the government advice on what to do, and then for the government to allocate resources and time to do it. I also hope that, but ordinarily the Commission being an investigative process, it is giving the opportunity to the public, civil society, think tanks, academia, the media, individuals, as well as communities, to be able now to communicate with government. If the communities have been having problems communicating with the district land boards or district councils and even ministers, the doors of the commission are now open. Members of the community can come and say, look, we have this problem, we have this problem, we have problems, and we think these problems can be solved this way at our level, so that there is now conversation between government and the communities through the commission. Whether the communities will be able to utilize this opportunity, I'm not sure. But at least I believe the doors of the commission are open.
Now, I believe, in my opinion, you have an idea that the commission will solve some issues, but not all. So from your perspective, what do you think there will be what issues will this commission, might this commission allow to slide by, and yet are actually pertinent issues that must be addressed?
First of all, the mandate of the commission, for instance, is not to prosecute. Since the mandate of the commission is to investigate issues of land governance, administration, registration, blah, 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 and recommend to government, not going to force government to prosecute where prosecution is needed, to reallocate resources where reallocation of resources is needed. So those things it cannot actually handle. But the most important thing is that there is a lot of impunity in Uganda. Land governance problems, court processes take 10 years, and issues are up and down. The level of impunity and corruption in land governance is too deep-seated for the commission doing its job in a few months to be able even to understand the depth of the impunity and corruption, and also make concrete recommendations on how to solve this problem. And of course, finally, I hope the establishment of the commission is rooted in political will to now address the serious land governance challenges. But the commission has neither the mandate nor the ability to force political will where there is none.
Yes.
If the commission can recommend that the policy leadership, cabinet and below, need to put their foot down and say we are addressing these problems, they would be able to do it, but they are not going to be able to be responsible for the generation of political will.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Sebastian. It has been
Welcome.
a very active discussion here on the breakfast meeting. Before I let you go, your final words to our viewers.
3 things. 1, where land governance issues or challenges are identified and well known, they can be communicated to government, but also directly sent to the community. At least now there is an opportunity for the public to communicate with government through the Commission of Inquiry. 2, government needs to look at its capacity limitations in all the land governance institutions and address these limitations. There are districts you find have no lands officers, have no natural resources officers, have no district staff surveyors. District land boards are borrowed from neighboring districts. There is corruption in area land committees, and these problems are causing serious land conflicts in the communities. Finally, government, especially strategic planning, needs to think of a way of balancing developments, land acquisitions, resettlements with community livelihoods and interests. In my opinion, funds should be set aside before a project is undertaken so that when I acquire land, I must develop it in 2 years. But acquiring community land, you displace the community, you even don't compensate it very well, you are waiting for a loan from somewhere, the community is suffering, the land is not being used, you seek a court order, court stops encroachment on the land because you call it encroachment since the community should leave your land, and you have processes and delays. You raise serious questions of why was this land acquired, where is it going to, and you even create opportunities and avenues for other interests and land grabbers to come and start appropriating the land at the cost of the community. Those are my 3 ideas.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sebastian Rwengabo.
Thank you.
It has been a very informative discussion here on The Morning Breeze. My name is Isabella Tugume. Good morning.